Hi there, it's Alexandra from the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel and blog, and I'm talking about garden paths today. Garden paths make such a difference to your garden, and so it is really worth taking some time to choose one if you're planning to get a new one or to redesign your garden. A lot of the videos on YouTube have slideshows of garden paths, and if that's what you prefer, there'll be a slideshow at the end of this video. You can check in the description below if you want to jump straight to the slideshow. But if you'd like to know a bit about the pros and cons of some of the garden paths I've seen in beautiful gardens over the last 2 years, then do stay tuned. The cheapest garden paths are mown garden paths or bark mulch garden paths. And both of them you can do yourself. Obviously, if you're going to mow your garden path, all you're going to do is to take your lawnmower through your grass. Here we've got a small town garden, a walled garden in Faversham with a meadow lawn in the middle, and there's a simple mown path both across it and around it. And here in a half-acre country garden, the garden is divided really into two halves. There's the more formal part nearer the house, and then there are the vegetables and the chickens and some open space and some orchard just on the other side of that. And obviously these two are connected with mown paths, which is absolutely perfect for the feel. Mown paths, the only problem with them is obviously you have to keep mowing, so that will mean once a week of work. Bark mulch paths are as simple as buying bark mulch from a DIY centre or a garden store and laying it out. It's very environmentally friendly, it will decompose over the years, and you will just have to top it up from time to time. If you want to change where your paths go, it couldn't be easier. I interviewed some people once who had bark mulch paths, and a tree fell over one of the paths, so they simply rerouted the path around it. It was just no problem to them. The next least expensive paths are gravel paths and shingle paths. Laying a gravel path is a certain amount of work. You lay out where you want the path to go, you dig it down, you lay a weed suppressing membrane on top, and then something called an MOT1 base, which is often crushed concrete, which is going to give it a base, and then you tamp that down, and then perhaps another layer on top, and then the gravel. And that's the correct way of laying a gravel path. However, a lot of people simply lay the gravel straight down. It is important to make sure that there is some kind of an edge, because otherwise your bits of gravel will just travel all over the lawn and get in the way of the lawnmower. You do need to know when you're digging anything that you're not going to go into electricity or drainage pipes, so you do need to take those checks. We did have gravel paths at the back of our garden, and when it came to time to top them up, we used seashells, and there's a bit more about that in the description below if you want to do a seashell path. Seashell paths are very environmentally friendly because they are a byproduct of the seafood industry, whereas gravel and shingle are mined from rivers and quarries. Now, of course, every DIY centre and every garden centre has got a wide range of man-made cement-based pavers or porcelain pavers, and with this it's very much a question of how your budget and your taste meet. But I would suggest either buying sample tiles or getting samples. Generally, whatever you choose, whether it's natural, gravel, stone, brick, or whether it's man-made such as porcelain or cement-based pavers, think about the hue and the tone and the colour and how it works with your current fence, any current paths and terraces you have, and the architecture or colour of your house, and perhaps even the kind of soil, what your soil looks like in your area. Because if you've got something like a red brick house and you lay a yellow brick path, it's probably not going to look as harmonious. Now, when we get to the more expensive paths, it's things like brick and stone. Now, brick is a really beautiful path, and the main thing with brick is to think about if your house is brick and you've got a brick path in the garden, those two bricks need to either match or harmonise. They won't match exactly, simply because when people go treading on the brick, it's going to develop into a different colour. But if they start off the same background colour, then that should be fine. I've seen some really lovely brick paths. For example, the Salutation, which is a garden in Kent, which is open to the public every day of the year. It was built by Edwin Lutyens, and he also got involved with the design of the garden. And the brick paths are very much the brick that is the house, and they're lovely paths. And of course, if you have a small town garden and you want to do a brick front path or back path, then of course it is very obvious if you choose a red brick path for a yellow brick house, it's not really going to work. But a brick path can be lovely. Stone is the most expensive. We set a stone path in our parterre because it was a relatively small area of space. Obviously, if you have a very long garden, then it is going to get very expensive if you put a stone path right down to the end of it. So you may consider using different elements for different paths as they go through the garden. You could perhaps use stone nearest the house, and then maybe a mixture of stone and shingle and maybe stepping stones as it gets further away. But it's a good idea to think about harmonising it all. We used Indian sandstone, which is cheaper. I think you would probably also want to check the ethical element of it, whether it was coming from somewhere that was certified fair trade or something like that, as I think there are issues over that. But it comes in lots of beautiful shades, and it is a little bit cheaper than York stone or Portland stone or the other really beautiful local stones that you get. Stone paths and brick paths are quite low in maintenance. You will have to clean them occasionally because they can have a build-up of moss or algae, and that can get slippy, but it's much less work. Once you've laid a stone path, it's often there for hundreds of years. Our front garden path was laid probably when the house was built in 1781, and although it's a little bit cracked, I love it and I wouldn't dream of replacing it with anything new. When you are laying either cement pavers, porcelain, stone or brick, you need to think about what goes between the joints. I feel we made a great mistake here when we laid some Indian sandstone paths, which you can see behind me. Now we've got, in between our joints, we used a sort of cement pointing, and my husband and I had quite an argument about this because I didn't want to weed between the stones. And of course I haven't had to weed between the stones, but I have to say it did not look as nice. When that path was laid, it looked very hard and very unnatural. Now that was 8 years ago, and some moss has grown over where the joins are. So it does look better now, but I think you will have to think about, am I going to spend a bit of extra time weeding but have a sort of nicer, more natural looking path, or do I just want cement in between the bricks or the stones? The mixed material path is another one which is really good, and this of course could be stepping stones in shingle, it could be stepping stones in lawn, or you could do something like this, which is a slate path with slate chips around it. I think that looks very nice. That was at the Hampton Court Garden Show. I particularly love this path I saw in a Whitstable garden. When the owners bought the house, there was a lot of concrete paving and terracing, but it was very old and cracked, so they actually worked some of the cracks further open, and they filled them with a really creative treatment of terracotta, tiles, shells, bricks and things like that. And I think that's a lovely and really very environmentally friendly and creative way to make the best of what is a pretty dull old path. I'm now going to play you a slideshow of paths to inspire you and to remind you of what some of the paths here look like. That'll be for just 30 seconds with music. If you've enjoyed this, do hit like, because then I'll know you'd like to see more about garden details. The Middlesized Garden YouTube channel is aimed at people who find their gardens a bit big when they're doing something like weeding or sweeping up leaves. But if you want to do something really interesting, like put in a greenhouse or a garden or a shed, or even just another lovely plant, you suddenly find it's a bit small. So that makes you middle-sized. So I do hope you'll join us. If you haven't subscribed to the Middlesized Garden, we upload on Saturday. So do subscribe and hit the notification button so that you do get all our videos. And thank you for watching. Bye.